There are a lot of reptiles that make fantastic pets, but they're too expensive. And that's probably why you don't own them or even know they exist. So today, let's go over the top 5 super expensive but best pet reptiles you could own. My name's Adam, this is Erwin, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. Now when I say unaffordable reptiles or reptiles you can't afford, I don't mean like, haha, peasant. All I'm saying is these reptiles are just unaffordable for most people, and they would make great reptiles if they weren't so unaffordable. Their care requirements are easy, they're amazing temperaments, amazing reptiles to handle and interact with. The cost is kind of high for most of us. Number 5, not blue-tongue skinks, shinglebacks. Now, shinglebacks are in the same family. Now, shinglebacks are in the same family as blue-tongue skinks. So this blue-tongue right here, which is an Indonesian, is really affordable. I bought this guy for 250 bucks. You can find them between 125 to 350 all day long. Even if you wanted a blue tongue from Australia, a northern, you could find those guys for really cheap too, or affordable I should say, for under 500 bucks. But if you want a shingleback, which is very similar, but they have a shingly type back, which is why they're called that, you're gonna be spending a heck of a lot more. Now keep in mind, this is going to depend on when you watch this. If you watch it when it comes out, it's accurate, but these prices change like crazy. The market on reptiles changes like you couldn't believe. So the cheapest shinglebacks that I could find here in Canada were $7,800 each. $7,800 each. And there was a more rare version of them called a Goldsfield pair for 19,000 US. So Canadian, what's that, like $1 million basically? I'll never stop making fun of how bad our currency is. Regardless, if you are US dollars, $19,000, or for a individual, I've seen shinglebacks go as cheap as $3,500 US, but again, it changes like crazy. So maybe you'll watch this in 2 years and they'll be way more expensive or way cheaper, but shinglebacks mate for life, or that's what we are meant to believe. There's a little bit of research going on to maybe debunk this, but the most accurate information I could find is shinglebacks are a monogamous pair. So if you have a pair, they'll produce together. You can't mix and match like you can with ball pythons and most colubrids, which makes them a little bit different than most reptiles. In terms of shingleback care, the reason you'd want one is, well, they're basically blue tongues but look a little bit cooler. They've got stumpy little tails, which is why a lot of the times they're called bobtails or knobtail. There's a whole bunch of different names in Australia. And of course, if you're in Australia, you're laughing because these guys are relatively cheap there in comparison to here. So it's not something to be taken lightly, but the care is easy. So if you do get one, it's not the most fragile thing in the world. You can definitely take care of them if you know how to take care of a blue tongue because they're similar. Not the same, but pretty darn similar. And in my opinion, they're one of the most beautiful and unique type of lizards that you could own. And even if you're an intermediate, like even beginner but done a lot of research, you could take care of a shingleback, no problem. Number 4, Angolan Pythons. Now, Angolan Pythons are similar to ball pythons, which is why they're on the list. Now, they do like it a little bit warmer and a little bit drier. In the wild, you'll find them in places like Angola. So it's a little bit different part of Africa to ball pythons, but very close. They look similar, they act similar. The difference is they're going to eat a lot better, which is why I think that Angolan Pythons are so amazing. They're freaking awesome. They have a beaded, well, sort of beaded feeling scale. I got to hold a few of these at a reptile expo. It was a really great experience. And at the time, they were a lot more affordable than they are now. If I knew then what I knew now, I'd be holding one because I'd have one in my collection. They just seem like they do a lot better in captivity than they used to because they're a lot more often captive bred, where before they'd be basically always imported. Imported animals oftentimes come cantankerous, full of parasites. There's a bunch of different issues with them. Now, the issue is these animals to get into are going to be $800 to $1,200 US most of the time. Maybe a little bit cheaper if you find them imported, but we're talking about captive bred stuff, because captive bred is just generally better. I like animals that don't have parasites inside them. So that's why they're on the list. I think that everyone would have them because they don't need as much humidity, which is a lot easier for a lot of people. They're going to be semi-arboreal in comparison to ball pythons, which there's an argument that they are anyway, but you're going to find them more on cliff faces in the wild, and if you give them like a universal rocks background, or a background that you make yourself out of like a grout, like a dry lock method, you'll find them up top of there. So they're more fun to watch, they're more active, just generally they're kind of more fun, but they're gonna eat better too. So it's kind of like the better ball python, but there's not a lot of morphs, which is, I guess, a drawback. Angolan pythons will catch on if they get a little bit cheaper. Number 3, are you hissing at me right now? Indigo snakes. Now, there's a bunch of different ones. What I'm talking about is a North American colubrid in the Drymarchon family. So if you've heard of Crebos, same family. Indigos, I guess the holy grail are eastern indigos, but the reason that you don't see them a lot is because they're expensive. A lot of the places they're endangered, but a lot of the places they're illegal to own. So if you live in a certain state, you can't own them at all. And also the cheapest eastern that I found was $4,800. So that's of recording this right now. Now there are cheaper ones. You can find Mexicans or Texans for a little over $1,000, but still that's a pretty expensive animal. So I just think that it really puts a lot of people out in terms of what they want to afford or what they want to spend on an animal. Now they're beautiful. They're black with a little bit of red on their faces. They're big. This is the longest snake in the US that you can find naturally occurring. They're just huge and beautiful. And that black body and that face, and not only that, but they're super smart. The way that they act, the way that they move around the cage, in my opinion, is fun to watch. But if you could afford one, if these were more affordable, you'd want one. It's a large colubrid that tames down easily, is apprehensive to bite. They're super smart. Number 2, Monkeytail Skinks. Now I actually have 3 Monkeytail Skinks, but they're all upstairs. So they're in quarantine, so they can't be down here. Now, I'm never gonna move them down here because they're gonna be in my office forever. I like watching them too much. Imagine, well, okay, put it this way. The one I named Bruce after Bruce Banner because it looks like the Hulk. I've got 2 that are normal and 1 that's a hypo, and the big ones are big. This is the largest skink in the world. Now this is a big skink. This is a unit right here. Irwin, stop moving. We're almost done. But Irwin is nothing in comparison to a Monkeytail skink. Now they're different too. Now these guys are from Indonesia and Australia, where Monkeytail skinks are from the Solomon Islands, which is why they're called the Solomon Island prehensile tail skink. Now they're called that because they're from the Solomon Islands and they have a prehensile tail. So monkeys have tails that they can grab onto branches with. Prehensile, just like your thumbs, your fingers, your hands, you can use them to grab onto things, to grip things. And prehensile tail skinks or monkeytail skinks can do the same. So if you grab one by the tail, it's not going to drop it. It's gonna hold on to you. Where if I grab Irwin by the tail, he might drop it. A lot of skinks will drop their tails. You don't have to worry about that with Monkeytail skinks, and I love that. Now, also, they're herbivores. These animals will eat things like salad greens, so, turnip greens, mustard greens, Swiss chard, all sorts of things, but they'll also eat pothos, which to most animals are toxic. In fact, I put pothos in a lot of my dart frog enclosures or other enclosures because it'll never get eaten. It'll never get trampled. It grows really easily. It's basically like an iron plant in that it'll never die. But with prehensile tail skinks, if you put it in there, they're gonna make a buffet out of it. It's gonna be gone. Now, these are gonna be live bearers and give 1 baby per year or every 2 years. It's a very long gestation period. So you're only going to get one every 2 years, most likely, because they put out one year, take a year off, and then go again. So the pair I have actually given birth to a baby, and then Bruce, the one I have, is a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to have to get a bigger enclosure because I thought that a 36 by 36 by 18, the biggest enclosure that Exoterra makes, would be big enough. But then when I got the adults, I looked at them in the enclosure and I'm like, what the heck are these Godzilla things? So that's coming up. Hit subscribe if you don't mind, because we're gonna make an insane enclosure, like the biggest thing that I've ever built. So that's coming soon. Of course, Monkeytail skinks also cost between $1,000 and $1,500 on average. So not the cheapest. Overall, an amazing lizard. I love to take these out while I'm editing, just put them on my shoulder. They just kind of sit there and chill. They've got the most amazing look, crazy heads, big bodies, big feet, like these big monkey lizard feet, crazy tails. This is becoming one of my favorite species on the entire planet. And number 1, Bolans Pythons. Now this is maybe one of the most beautiful, naturally occurring non-venomous snakes in the entire world. It's a large snake. We're talking 7 to 9 feet on average from New Guinea, and Bolans Pythons are not cheap. The cheapest price I've ever found for one actually for sale was $3,500 US. But when I looked today, the cheapest I could find was $9,000. And if you're looking for really high quality ones that say like Nerd produces, $10,000 plus. So they're not cheap, they're very expensive, but they're beautiful and they can be tamed down. So it's great because if you want a big snake to give you a hug that's going to be arboreal, which is what they are, to be in a display enclosure, but also you can take care of them. They're not going to be difficult to take care of at all. They're going to eat for you every time. Bolans Pythons are the cat's pajamas. Like, there really isn't much that is better if you're looking for a really expensive animal. So there you go. Those are your top 5 most ridiculous, overpriced animals that'll make really good pets one day if we can bring the price down. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you like this idea? Did you like the list? Did I get this right? Let me know. And as always, a special thanks. Okay, now he's getting all cantankerous. A special thanks to the Patreon supporters. For as little as $1 a month, you can be part of the Patreon club too. You get discounts on the merch, you get extra videos, vlog type videos, things like that. I'd really appreciate it. You guys are freaking awesome. I love this platform. And well, I guess that's it now, isn't it? Yeah, because I do videos twice a week, that means that I'll see you on Monday.